Hey guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here. Just like every Saturday, I'm here to talk about an episode of a superhero animated series, and today I'll be talking about the episode of Batman the Animated Series titled Zatanna. Yeah, I pronounce it Zatanna, not Zatanna, that's just how it is. If you haven't seen this episode, you may want to make those arrangements before continuing with this video, as I will be spoiling many things about the episode. Do with that warning what you will. Before I get into the review itself, allow me to quickly sum up the plot of the episode. Stage magician Zatanna is performing in Gotham City, and we find out from Bruce and Alfred watching the show that Bruce is old friends with Zatanna. We see a flashback that explains further. During Bruce's years of training after his parents were killed and before he became Batman, he learned techniques of escape artistry from Zatanna's father, Zatanna. Bruce and Zatanna had sort of a romantic chemistry, but Bruce's personal mission overcame any feelings that he might have had. In the present day, during Zatanna's act, she is framed for stealing money from the Gotham Mint. Batman helps Zatanna find out it is Montague Kane, a magic debunker, who stole the money. While in the process of stopping him, Zatanna is clued in that Batman is her close friend from many years ago. Cue credits. After the creation of the concept of Harley Quinn, I would say that Paul Dini's biggest contribution to the world of Batman would be adding Zatanna as more of a supporting player for Batman. Yes, Dini was involved with the video games Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, which made a bazillion dollars each, but I don't know if I would go so far as to say that those games specifically brought something new to the mythos, popular as they were. And yeah, Zatanna was created in the 1960s, but up until now, she was just a Justice League character, and I specifically mention that Paul Dini is responsible for this addition to the Batman mythos because he is very well known for being a huge fan of the character of Zatanna, and also he wrote this episode. And in his Detective Comics run in the mid-2000s, Dini even imported this idea that Bruce trained with Zatanna into the backstory of the character. So in short, this episode is pretty important in the larger Batman world. True, making Zatanna more of a Batman supporting character isn't anywhere close to the level of importance that Harley Quinn took on in the last 2 decades, but I still maintain that it is the second most prominent distinction that Dini holds as a Batman scribe. So that is how important this episode is in the larger scheme of things. But what did I think of the episode itself? It was alright. It was a pretty enjoyable episode. Not perfect, not terrible. I think a lot of the issues that I had with this episode would be minimal and non-existent if I wasn't an avid comic book fan. For example, it's only because I read comics that I know that Zatanna is not only a stage magician, but also has real magic powers. But if you knew nothing about Zatanna and then watched this episode, you could be forgiven for thinking that she's just a really good stage magician. The only time it is left a little ambiguous as to whether she is using real magic is at the end when she vanishes. Now, by the time Zatanna made her appearance in Justice League Unlimited, she was using full-on magic, but just looking at this episode, it is a little hazy. Maybe this was something that Dini wanted to more openly reference, but perhaps he wasn't allowed to do. I know that the network had many rules imposed on this show, so while I don't know if higher-ups interfered with this episode in particular, it is possible that some bigwigs said, no, you can't have real magic in a Batman show, although this scenario doesn't seem likely to me since we later got an episode, The Demon Within, that did have full-on magic. I do love the flashback stuff, but that could be because I'm a sucker for any of the stories set in Bruce's years of training. The episode says that Bruce used an alias when he was training with Zatanna, which is a new element in this series, I think. If it came up in Night of the Ninja or Day of the Samurai, I don't really remember it. The idea that Bruce uses aliases when he's traveling the world was also used in John Byrne's The Many Deaths of the Batman, which came out a few years before this episode aired, and I believe this comic was also the first time this particular idea was used, though I could be wrong since I'm not especially knowledgeable about the pre-crisis Batman comics. I don't often talk about the voice acting in these reviews, but this episode had voice work on both ends of the spectrum that I wanted to talk about. First, Montague Kane is voiced by Michael York, who I only know from Logan's Run, where he played the Sandman Logan himself. I thought his voice sounded familiar, but York didn't talk like this in Logan's Run, so it's possible that I've heard a similar voice elsewhere. But that York was able to disguise his voice so much really impressed me. I was also impressed that the DC Animated Universe was able to once again wrangle another famous, well-known actor for such a minor role. This kinda reminded me of a later situation where William H. Macy played Aaron in the Batman Beyond episode Disappearing Ink. And then on the other side of things, I was left very cold by the voice of Zatanna, provided by Julie Brown. I don't think it's so much that the actress is bad, but that she played the character in a way that didn't work for me. She plays Zatanna in both the present day and the flashback, and that is really where my chief concern came in. Kevin Conroy was really good at making his voice sound different when he was playing young Bruce Wayne, just as he is good at differentiating between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And maybe it's just that Kevin Conroy has had so much more practice by this point, but Brown's young Zatanna sounded virtually interchangeable with her adult Zatanna to me. At many different times in this episode, I kept thinking that Zatanna sounded like a little kid, even before we got the flashback where we actually got to see her in her youth. Again, I don't know if it's the actress herself or if this particular performance just wasn't working for her, but I came away from this episode not thinking much of it. And I hate to say it, but maybe I'm not the only one who wasn't impressed, since this version of the character was recast a couple of times, both in the web series Gotham Girls and later in Justice League Unlimited. So those were my thoughts on this episode, as well as a very lengthy preamble about how this episode features in the larger Batman tapestry. What did you guys think of the episode? And what did you think of my review? If you liked it, I do these kinds of reviews every Saturday, and next Saturday I'll be talking about an episode of Batman Beyond. And the weekend after that, I'll be talking about yet another episode of Batman the Animated Series. And throughout the week, I do other kinds of videos, so I encourage you to check those out as well. And if you did like this review, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later, and in the meantime, have a great rest of the day.